Hello, everyone, and welcome to another inspiring episode of our 5 o'clock Tea Talk series, proudly hosted by Coach Magazine Global. We've now reached our 37th episode, and today's guest brings both rich experience and grounded wisdom to our conversation. I'm your host, Seda Tekeci, former editor-in-chief, Coach Magazine Global, life coach, and passionate advocate for meaningful personal and professional transformation. Over the past 3 years, I've had the joy of hosting some of the most inspiring voices in the coaching world, thought leaders, pioneers, and deep thinkers whose work is shaping the future of how we grow and lead. Please help me welcome Zain Mustafa. He is an architect, cultural anthropologist, educator, and founder of the Indus River Valley Institute and Cube Editors, whose work brings together architecture, heritage, education, and community engagement in remarkable ways. Zain's career has been driven by a deep belief that architecture is far more than the design of buildings. It's a way of understanding people, preserving identity, and connecting communities with their history and culture. This philosophy has taken him on an extraordinary journey across Pakistan, from the ancient landscapes of Nagar Parkar to the Kailash valleys, where he has spent more than a decade researching, documenting, and sharing the country's rich architectural and cultural heritage. A graduate of Parsons School of Design in New York with a master's degree in education from Columbia University, Zain has lived and worked in the United States, Japan, the UAE, and Pakistan. His professional experience spans architecture, interior design, education, heritage conservation, and social impact, while his ongoing PhD research in the anthropology of heritage architecture continues to deepen his understanding of the relationship between people and place. Bear with me, he has a very long biography. One last paragraph. Beyond his architectural practice, Zain serves as president of the Society for the Protection of Animal Rights, which is very important for us too, advises several educational and cultural organizations, and collaborates internationally through IRVI to promote heritage conservation, cultural dialogue, and experiential learning. His work demonstrates how design, education, and cultural understanding can become powerful tools for leadership and positive social change. Today, we are delighted to explore his unique perspective on architecture, heritage, identity, and the role of culture in shaping more connected, thoughtful, and resilient communities. Welcome, Zain. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you, Seda. Assalamu alaikum. I am very well. That was a very, very humbling introduction, very elaborate bio. Thank you so much for giving me so much time and for reminding me of the responsibilities that come with that kind of a bio.
Yeah. Thank you for accepting my invitation. We met through my previous guest, Shehzad, and his eclectic leadership movement. We both advisory members in that community. I'm so glad to have this chance to know you and your work more. Before we dive into our questions, I'd like to invite our audience to hit the subscribe button on our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. For more coaching content, visit us at www.thecoachmagazine.com and enjoy our quarterly digital issues. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. As you know, your engagements helps us grow this global community of conscious leaders. So I'm diving into our questions so excitedly. You trained as an architect, studied education at Columbia, and are now completing a PhD in the anthropology of heritage architecture. Looking back, what thread has connected all these seemingly different paths?
Seda, that's a beautiful multi-million dollar question. And it's a question I'm not often asked, but critical to the work that I do today. So when I was studying architecture, I was in a history of architecture seminar with an incredible professor called Jean Gardner at Parsons. And I must have been only 18 or 19 years old. And we went around the room talking about where each of us was from. It was a small class, like I said, a seminar of only 6 students. And, I was listening to others talk about their European history, their heritage from Europe or from other parts of the country, other parts of the world, and other parts of the US. And I started thinking, gosh, I come from a 9,000-year-old history. So I mentioned it, I was 19 and um, I didn't know anything about anything, as 19-year-olds don't. And a 19-year-old in 1990 didn't have the internet. So the material that I had access to was limited to libraries where one had to go and look up books or just one or two television stations.
Mhm.
So I stood up and I said, I come from a 9,000-year-old history. And there was pin drop silence in the classroom. And that made me realize how important my knowing of my identity and my land through the language of architecture was. So we may have been studying modern architecture, but it dawned on me very quickly how important it was for me to take ownership of my own ancient architecture of the land where I was from. And at that point, I was in New York, and it became so important for me to understand the land around the Indus River, which we refer to as Pakistan today. So that's when it really hit me that architectural heritage is a gateway into understanding everything we need to about ourselves and our heritage, our indigeneity, where we're from, who we are, what our responsibilities are, what kind of legacies we need to leave behind for our future generations, for my children, and for yours.
Yeah, it's amazing. 9,000 years history of a country. And looking from the perspective of architecture, education, heritage, indigeneity, is it the word? It's amazing. And you are the ambassador of this for like how many years?
Well, now I've been the unofficial ambassador for 16 years. So when I
Yeah.
finished all of these work-related travel locations, whether it was Japan or the US, I also grew up in the UK. So I grew up very aware of my colonial history. Um, I moved back to Pakistan. I came home to roost in 2010. So for 16 years, I have been continuing this research on identity. Who am I? And Seda, every place I've been to, you listed so many countries. Everywhere they wanted to know, where are you from? And many times I wasn't sure. What do I say? Where am I from? Because many times people didn't know much about Pakistan. They didn't know where Pakistan was. They weren't sure if Pakistan was Middle Eastern or if it was Indian. What was Pakistan? And so when I came back in 2010, using the lens of ancient architecture from Nagar Parkar to Kailash, Mehergarh being the first of the Indus Valley cities, 9,000 years old, all the way to modern Karachi and colonial Karachi. So, I started looking at my heritage footprints and trying to understand who I am and where have I come from, and other people like me who need to know their identity in this global marketplace where race and color and gender and language um, has become so sensitive and so fragile and so crucial to know about each other. So I started this work 16 years ago, and it's a continuing learning process every day, every day, every day.
It feels like when you talk about, you've been to so many places, and whenever you are there, they're asking you, where are you from? It feels like for us people who travel a lot, it is very important and crucial to know your identity. Because for like the local people you're working with in Pakistan who never left their places, they don't care about that probably, they just live their lives. They build tents, continue to eat and pray and do their life, and this is all enough for them. But for us who travel around the world and being asked, where are you from, who you are, We need to know. We need to know. And it's good. It's good.
This is also a really important point. When I came back here and I started looking at uh, talking to these people that you're talking about, the local communities that live around heritage sites and have lived there for generations, and you ask them for books on their history, there's nothing written. It's oral history because they believe that they're living it. Exactly as
Mhm.
you just said, they're living it. They don't need to explain it to an outsider. They don't need to look at a colonial or a decolonial lens. They don't need to look at the impact of Western media. They every day. So those of us who are global citizens and feel like we have friends and we have homes in other parts of the world and we have communication with the outside world, we need to know these things. But those people who are actually living there, exactly as you said, they don't need to know, they don't care, they just continue and they
Yeah, they have the wisdom of living. We
yeah.
just try to understand that wisdom.
Yes, they have a native ancient wisdom which they keep alive. So they don't see the need to write it down. It's in their songs, it's in their poetry, it's in their um, rituals of children being born, in their rituals of burying the dead. It's in their different celebrations, festivals, the food, the textiles. They don't need to write books. It's part of who they are. They live it every day.
And if something catastrophic happens, they continue to live because they know how to grow their food, how to continue life. But we struggle. We're gonna be like, oh, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah,
Oh,
they have a completely different and very internalized um, living understanding of resilience, right? For us, resilience is something you plug into when you need it. They have
yeah,
it embedded in their genetics.
yes. Okay, that brings me to my next question. Also, you spent more than a decade traveling across Pakistan, from Nagar Parkar to the Kalash community, studying heritage and architecture. What has the journey taught you about identity that you could never have learned in a classroom?
Oh, I've learned many things, Seda, about identity that no classroom has ever taught me. But in my travels, in my conversations, in my sharing meals, breaking bread, I've learned that identity is not a singular destination. It's a moving target. It's growing. Uh, it has a heartbeat. It's diverse. It's colorful. And today I find that when I look at the politics of identity, um, we try to minimize it and use a binary lens to make it as limited as possible. Certainly, identity in Pakistan is mixed of many, many different cultures, languages, colors, textiles. And that's the one thing I've really learned that for me, identities, whether we look at Marshall McLuhan's Global Village or we look at, Edward Said's brilliant book on culture and imperialism, identity is not a singular point. It moves, it grows, it changes. That's something I've learned.
Yeah, we put borders between the countries, like unseen borders, but it's on the map, and we degrade people and put into classes, like from this gender, from this society, whatever. But we are all the human after all. Like we have the same feelings, same needs, same emotions. It's I don't know, politically it's all messed up, but yeah, you're doing a very profound job that probably every day you wake up to something new.
I do. And so I wake up really excited every morning that what something new will I learn? What will I see? What will I feel? And these boundaries that we are building around us, they are so toxic and so dangerous and so, like you said, degrading and dehumanizing and deculturizing people. I find that the next generation is doing a lot of work. Gen Z is doing a lot of work to actually blur these boundaries. You know, they're creating their own language, they're creating their own way of being, they're creating their own systems that are undoing these boundaries. And many years ago, a friend of mine's mother very generously said to me that your work is fascinating because while the world is busy erecting walls and boundaries, which, by the way, Seda, these country boundaries are visible. You can go to borders and see them. They're not invisible. You know, the lines of control are very visible and very secure. And she said that while all of this is happening, you are bringing people together. You're blurring the boundaries. You're bringing the walls down. And for me, I'd never thought about it that way, but I found that to be such a beautiful, magical way of looking at my work, which I think is very simple and it has very humble roots. It's very basic at one level. But I thought, what a wonderful way to look at it, that, you know, while the world is building walls, I am trying to tear them down.
Yes. Recently, a musician died, Glenn Hansard. I don't know if you know, he was the solist of the Frames, Irish singer.
Hmm.
And because I was watching it on social media, the algorithm brings all the videos about him. And one of the videos, he was talking about his friend who traveled with a Nissan Micra from Ireland to all the way to China, Pakistan, all the way that route. And when he came back, he said, "You know what, Glenn? There is no borders. People are so nice. Yeah, we see a lot of war on in the world, but people are they have hospitality. They have, offer you food, drinks. I didn't see anything bad on the way. So yeah, it brings me hope also. This happened probably 30 years ago, but still, when I was in Bahrain, my kid was going to a British school, which all the expats were going, children were going. And when I look at to those children, I saw these children are from all around the world, and they will go back to their countries. They have these friendships, and they will have the peace and friendship and the good continue. I'm like you. I have the hope in the Gen Z. Hopefully, they will change the world. Hopefully, they will not change according to her.
I have a lot of
Okay,
hope in the Gen Z. I think the Gen Z um, have a very fresh and non-binary, very fluid way of looking at culture, work environments, delivering projects. They have a very, and their nomadic fluidity in thought, but also in their way of being. You know, they can open up a computer and sit anywhere. They don't need an office. They can do it on a beach. They can do it at a cafe. They can do it at home. Their boundaries are, you know, emotional and psychological, and, you know, they don't want to be pushed, whilst I think millennials and Gen X, like myself, are willing to do things that we've been told to do because that's how we were raised. I feel I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope in Gen Z to create a completely new world order, which we desperately need.
they can think outside the box. We given options and we choose from A and B. They think
Yes.
about the C, D, E, F, G, all the other options, but why not choose another option? Why do I have to choose from A and B? It's very
Yeah.
great to see them, yeah, in front of our own eyes. Okay, many people think leadership is about having answers. Your work suggests it's about asking better questions and remaining curious. How has curiosity shaped your leadership style?
So for me, leadership is a peculiar space because I'm not sure I really understand the word. I think if one thinks of themselves as a leader, they are probably not a leader. I think leaders happen organically. It depends on the work they're doing. I think it's action based. It's not about the words, it's about doing it, showing it, and inspiring people. It's not about forcing agendas. It's not about structure. I think it's, you know, being a role model and doing what you believe in, being authentic. And eventually, if you can inspire somebody to take some parts of your work and use it in their own environment, then that's a kind of leadership. I don't see myself, Seda, as a leader. I don't see it. And I think it's a strange word.
It's kind of when you are talking about all these qualities of a leader, it's coming from inside out. Like, you don't do things as it's supposed to be. You do it because it comes from inside. You just driven by it. You wake up and you think about it. I just need to do this. Like I'm thinking about a great leader of our country, Atatürk. He didn't do all those stuff for being a leader. He just was very passionate about the country. He wanted the country to be independent, and he was a soldier, and he did what he needs to do, and he became the first president of the republic. But I don't think he was doing these things or writing these books because he wanted to be the leader. Of course, yes, you're right. Thank you so much for that perspective.
Yeah, I'm not a leader. I just do what I think I need to do.
It will be understood after we pass, hopefully.
Hopefully, hopefully.
And you designed everything from educational spaces and restaurants to heritage projects in your architectural area and even an animal sensitive zoo. When you begin a project, do you design for beauty first, functionality first, or human emotion first?
I think because I'm approached normally by projects, by clients who want an experience. So I'd like to think that I first start thinking about the emotion, the experience, and then the functionality, and then the beauty at the end of it.
It will come this way. Okay.
It's all
Okay.
about the emotion, Seda. I mean, one can't. I believe that to design without emotion, to design without love, that's not design. There's no design there. Then you're just solving a problem.
Mhm,
And you don't need an architect or somebody with my experience to just solve a problem. That can be solved by um, others, by much simpler systems.
mhm,
But I think if one has this kind of exposure to different kinds of experiences, then someone like myself is responsible to first design from here outwards. I'll give you an example. When we were designing the Karachi Zoo, uh, many people said, "Why are you designing it? Why do we need such a?" We were a group of 8 architects. I put together a team of 8 architects, and the first thing we did, like anything else, you do a site visit, and you go and see how the client wants to live, right? So what does that mean? It means I went into the cages
mhm,
with my team. I said, "This is our client. Our client is not the visitor who's coming for entertainment, which I don't
mhm,
want. My client is the captive wildlife who I want to give them a better experience. I want them to be psychologically calm. I want them to be emotionally calm, which is not possible inside a zoo, but you try and do the best that you can." Um, and so we had one of the tiger cages opened. And at that time, that particular cage was being cleaned, and the tigress was Rachel. She was 19 years old. And the zoo said, "You should not be going in. It's a wild animal," and yada, yada, yada. I said, "This is my only window. The cleaner's here, the caretaker's here. I have to go in." And, they're not wild animals. They're domesticated because
mhm,
they're given food at a certain time. They live in small environments. They're dependent on humans. It's a very heartbreaking client, right?
mhm,
So imagine designing um, a hospital for uh, the mentally ill or an old home. It's a very emotionally driven design process.
mhm,
And that's where we began for the Karachi Zoo. I said, I want to go inside Rachel's cage while she's there and see what this experience is like for her. It's not just decorating to make it beautiful. It's actually to see, what will be the best for her life, not mine as an outsider, because she has to continue living there and essentially continue to suffer. So, how can we make that as soft as possible? And for the other architects, for the government, for the zoo people, they thought we were crazy that we wanted to go inside the cages and from there look out. And that's how the design was done. It was done from client centric point of view, even if my client was a tiger.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It brings me my memories when my visit to a zoo in Istanbul with my 10 and a half months old girl. I was a newly mom. As you can imagine, I was so emotional. And when I entered the zoo, the first cage was a parrot's cage. And parrots say, welcome. In Turkish, hoş geldin. I was like, I started crying. It's like, oh my God, look at that little creatures welcoming us here, taken away from his home and into this cage. And it was so heartbreaking for me, really. I then understand what is the zoo's real purpose in this world.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
terrible spaces.
Yeah. Okay, my next question. Having lived and worked in Pakistan, United States, Japan, UAE, and collaborated internationally, you experienced many cultures firsthand. In today's increasingly polarized world, as we talked about a little, what role can heritage and storytelling play in building understanding instead of division?
Oh my God, this is crucial. This is the bit that I live for every day. That how can we start talking about shared history? You see how my excitement changes? I've gone from being momentarily so depressed thinking about Rachel in the zoo to now thinking I want to celebrate your history and mine, the intersections of our history, what makes us similar, whether it's the shalwar or it's the biryani or it's the rabab, what are the things that we can celebrate where we can travel together through history from Beijing to Portugal, from Moscow to Addis Ababa, and look at what all overlaps, how food has traveled, how jewelry has traveled, how textiles have traveled, how there's so many similarities. And that for me is critical when we look at heritage buildings, that no heritage building in this region was ever an immaculate conception. They didn't come out of nowhere. There were people trading ideas. Look, in my country, we do it this way. This is how we do woodwork here. This is how we do bricks. This is how we do stones. This is how we do domes. This is how we do arches. And some patron has said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. I want something new for my home, my haveli, my palace, my tomb. And you see the movement of design, you see the movement of ideas, philosophies, movement of spirituality, movement of faith. So many things that overlap and that we can celebrate. This whole division business for me is bad. We need to come together and celebrate our similarities.
And I think I watched your TEDx talk for the youth in Pakistan, and I saw you were talking about in 2001 9/11 events and how the things changed for you then. So probably this is the coming root of this excitement for you to make people understand the similarities rather than the differences, right?
Yes. 9/11, as you rightfully referenced, I watched it from my New York apartment and I realized that uh, New York City was filled with so many different types of people. And we all came together at that time. Yes, there was a certain anonymity that we lost because some people started wondering who the other was. But then this issue of identity became really obvious that then people wanted to genuinely know where you're from. But I thought this is a wonderful example that we need to scale up globally of how different people can live together and understand each other's ways of life, ways of being, ways of living. there's a time, I feel now is a time for us to build empathy, to be able to see each other truly for what we are, to be able to obviously respect that, but most of all, love it, to love the language you don't know, to love the person whose appearance and optics you don't understand. I think it's crucial in this time of division that we really open our hearts and learn what empathy is and stop worrying about these borders and these boundaries and actually build a whole new way of being, like a whole new way of leadership, as you said. Where are our leaders going to come from?
Yeah, it starts with knowing people, personally. I was in the United States when what 9/11 happened too. I was an exchange student in high school, and I was in South Carolina. I clearly remember everything, every detail. I was in art class, and people said, "Turn on the TVs." It was around 10:30. And we started watching how the planes were crashing the buildings, the Twin Towers, and people were like, we were watching like a fiction movie. It was like, what's going
Mm-hmm.
on? We couldn't understand, we couldn't comprehend what's going on. And I, as a Muslim, I wasn't wearing hijab back then, but as a Muslim, they know me. My friends, my classmates, from junior classes to senior classes. Even I had a Spanish class with sophomores. Because they know me, they told me if anyone disturbs you, tell us, we'll deal with it. Don't worry about it. My representative asked me if I want to stay at home for like a week, not go to school because what happened. I said no. My friends told me like this, and I'm not afraid of anything. And really, I was happy and I was lucky. I didn't face anything bad. But my friend in another school, in another area, a guy friend who was also from Turkey and Muslim, got got into fight with some people, because he is Muslim. And he had to change schools, he had to change families and all that. But the people who knows me, it, being a Muslim is not a monstrous thing. They know she is harmless. Of course, like as an 18-year-old girl, how can be a harmful? I don't know. But yeah, this comes from knowing people personally. And you are doing a huge job with your heritage work in your country, with the tourist people coming visit your area and make them understand what Pakistan is, who the Pakistani people are, and what is the history. It's amazing. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And my last question, if you could invite one historical figure for a 5 o'clock tea talk, not necessarily an architect, who would it be? And what is the one question you always wanted to ask them?
Ooh. You know, one of, I mean, I'm sure you already understand that because of my work, I get to learn about so many figures from history. And of course, everyone wants to talk to Buddha, and they want to talk to Gandhi, and they want to talk to Margaret Thatcher and Queen Elizabeth I and Queen Victoria of Russia. I mean, the person in history who fascinates me the most, and I would love to meet and bring to this conversation and learn more about, is the little dancing girl Sambara of the Indus Valley civilization. She's a little goddess-like metal figurine, and they call her the dancing girl. She's been named Sambara. She's probably about 2,500, 3,000 years old. And I would love to meet her, bring her into this conversation, learn about whether she was dancing or not, and what women who were dancing at the time in Mohenjo-daro, in the Indus Valley civilization, what did it mean? What was a matriarchal society? What was women's empowerment? How did they communicate? How did they trade? They were peaceful people. They lived there for thousands of years. I think she would be the most important personal history for me to meet and bring to this session.
Wow, this feels like open up a more deeper conversation, but I will leave it to another time. Thank you for this answer. I have a bonus question since we have time, if you have. At 5 o'clock tea talk, we often explore not just what our guests do, but who they are. Looking back on your own journey, what is one life lesson that has shaped you most profoundly as leader, and that you wish every emerging leader could learn earlier in their career? Think about the youth, like as an early emerging leaders. Um, what would you like to say?
Build better relationships with animals.
Mm.
I think, Seda, what I have learned through rescue animals, through understanding stray dog population programs, through my own pets, through the animals at the zoo, I genuinely think that I am who I am and I do what I do because of my relationships with animals. I think every household should raise their children with some form of an animal, whether it's livestock or it's a dog or a cat or a horse. Birds, I'm a bit cautious about suggesting because I don't think they should be in cages. But if you can keep a bird and allow it its freedom, I think the only way to make better humans, better leaders with empathy, with compassion, with respect, with the ability to see somebody who they don't understand is for them to be raised with an animal whose language they don't know and animal who doesn't speak their language. I genuinely believe I'm sitting here today because of the fact that I've been raised with animals always.
Wow, that's so great. One last question for us. Thank you so much for your answers. And I would like to learn if there is one last message you would like to add to our conversation before we end.
Gosh, we've covered so much. I think for your audience, there's so much to think about. I think for your audience, really owning one's heritage to understand that design of a future can only be truly honest if you understand the land underneath your feet, to understand heritage, to share it with your children, to understand one's responsibility to the land, to plants, to animals, to butterflies, to bees. There's a lot that we can do without knowing each other if there's a common understanding of the land below our feet. I think that's the message I would leave to your audience is whichever career you choose to go in, this is critical.
Yeah, without knowing each other, knowing the land. That's profound. Thank you so much. I will stay with that thought. Okay. Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for your
much.
time. And
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
for those who
Thank
are interested in your educational heritage architecture, they can visit the www.cubeeditors.com and www.industrialrivervalley.org. Follow the Instagram account Cube Editators if you are really interested in this heritage work and architecture, and have a conversation with Zain maybe. It's the I will write them under the video. Also, you will find these from there. Thank you so much. And before we end this session, I would again like to encourage our audience to hit the subscribe button on our channel for more insightful sessions. Don't miss out on this captivating 5 o'clock tea talk. I hope you find it captivating. I have so much pleasure with my guests. I hope you enjoy it too. Hit the ring button and remember to subscribe for more great content. Visit www.thecoachmagazine.com and enjoy our quarterly magazines. Thank you all for our conversation and listening to us. See you in the next episode.